Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the concluding session of our Black History Month program. Those of you who know about Black History Month will know that there usually is an annual theme to the month. And the theme that's been chosen within the UK context has been one of saluting our sisters. Now, I know for a fact that it's an appropriate theme because of the contribution that women have always made and continue to make to the well-being and the development of our community. In the light of that, we, within the Watford African Caribbean Association, decided through our Black History Steering Group that we wanted to conclude by inviting three women writers to join us this evening to share a bit of their story with us all and a bit about what their journey has been so that we can then reflect on that, learn from that, gain motivation potentially from that, and also they gain some exposure for the work that they've done. And I've written a very small amount in my lifetime in terms of what you might say published works. And I know it isn't easy to do that. So I thank the colleagues who have taken that step and been on that journey, namely Elaine Nembhard, Audrey of Brotherson, and Franca Lawrence. They are the writers who are with us this evening. And in a moment, I'm going to ask Elaine initially, followed by Audrey, and then Franca, first of all, to introduce themselves and then to talk about their works and to share some of the stuff about their journey. What we're going to do, we're going to have each of them in turn, after which we're going to open up for questions and comments from the audience. So I would ask you in the meantime to, if there's a question, do put it in the chat so that you don't forget what a question is that you might want to ask. And we will then be going through each of those questions. So your question is not going to be forgotten that you might want to ask. As I say, this has been part of a program of activities for Black History Month for the Watford African Caribbean Association, as we have done for the last few years. And I'll say a few words about that at the end. But you're not here to listen to me, and particularly bearing in mind the theme, what you really want to hear is the voice of the women that we've got with us this evening. So without further ado, I'm actually going to hand over to a young woman, I think she thinks she's still young, who's been known to me for many years, and she's now established herself in the field of social work and now writing. And that's the one and only Elaine Nembhard. So Elaine, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, Clive, I just want to say that Pearline can't get into the meeting. She just called me. Okay. She said she can't do link, is not working. Sorry about that.
I will send it to her again.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And I'm glad to be invited to this meeting to talk about what I've developed, which is my passion for writing very late in life. I've always had inkling that I've always wanted to make things better, no matter what I touch. Throughout my career is always going to be, how can I make that better? So I've worked in service development, in training, in children's services, and then I suppose I've come across some really bad practices, and I'm like, no, things should be better. So I've had a lot of students shadowing me and asking me, you know, how do you do that? How did you know that? How? And there was loads and loads of questions. And then I started writing little things for them. And then when I write reports and assessments, people are going, oh my God, you should bottle that. So I thought, you know what, let me start writing things, because I did it for training, but not in books. So I was delivering the writing the material, delivering the training, and then I had so much stuff on my computer that I've always wanted to get done. I'm sure you've all been there. Want to get it done, loads of drafts for different things, and nothing got done. And then lockdown came, and I thought, here's your opportunity. Finish everything that you said you wanted to achieve. And within literally like a space of 9 months, I'd finish off 3 of the books that I've started for years, and then publish them. Quite a few of them have become well known in the field of social work, and I'm grateful for that. I've always been asked about domestic abuse, how it impacts people's lives, especially children. And unfortunately for us in children's services, domestic abuse accounts for the majority of safeguarding referral to children's services. So in any given borough, which could be even Hertfordshire, it is the #1 reason why children are referred to services. And people don't actually understand what we mean by that and how harmful it is to children. And therefore I thought to myself, you know what, I need to spell it out, get the message out there. So my latest book that I just finished is called Cohesive Control, and that one is about regaining your life and protecting your children, because it's not always about the adults. And that it's really gone off to a flying start. Loads of positive feedback from my peers, from students, even mothers that I've worked with. One mother described me, I think she's described me, she said to me, I think you were actually a fly on my wall when I was living this, because you captured my story. And then another lady who's from Afghanistan, it can affect everybody. She had a most horrendous story. And she read my book and she's asked me to write her story because she thought it could be held up as a warning to women from her culture. So I'm actually working with her at the moment on a small book. But the major project I'm working on is a guide for practitioners, which should be published in the next week. Basically, looking at multi-agency work in health visitors, midwives, social workers, police officers. Police officers have not a clue when they turn up at people's home what to look for and how it might affect the children. So my guide, I'm hoping to get into the universities across England so that when they do teach the social work degree, they have that as the #1 book on their list, and also that the police adopt that as best practice. So I'm on a mission. And that's my passion and my mission and my vision. Thank you.
Sorry, are you done then, Elaine?
I think so, Clive. I haven't got much to say, much else to say.
Oh, okay. Well, so
anybody want to ask me anything? I'm quite happy to spend the next minutes or so on.
Just for information, then, it might be helpful if you put the title of your books in the chat on here, because people might want to come back to that in due course. But thank you for kicking off.
Which one? I've got several, but the latest one, okay.
Well, you can put them all in there. That won't be a problem. It's fine. Thank you very much for that. Now, Elaine and I worked together many years ago, and it's great to see how my motivation has transformed.
Taking credit for my hard work. That's all right, Clive.
Well, there was plenty of words of encouragement, and now you need to encourage me, I dare say. Okay, so thank you very much for that, Elaine. And as I say, do put any questions in the chat, comments in the chat, and we'll pick those up in due course. So next, I'm going to ask Audrey to introduce herself and to talk to us about her work. So welcome, Audrey. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Clive. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name's Audrey Brotherson, and I'd just like to take this opportunity tonight to thank Clive for the invitation to be on this platform to celebrate sister women writers and to share details of my book. My book is called Failures, the Diamonds of Success. And what motivated me to write this book? I wrote this book after I experienced a lot of job rejections, failures to find work, and failed interviews. I was in my 50s and I was looking for work. I was made redundant from a company. I worked for 18 years, and then I went to work for another small company. Now, when you leave a big company, as I did, and you go to work for a very small company, life seemed a bit boring at the time. The work was, I didn't find the work very entertaining, and I had itchy feet, and I had a wonderful idea one Friday afternoon that I'm going to be an entrepreneur. So Monday morning, I decided to write my resignation and hand it in. And I did so, but I handed it in at the wrong time. It was around 2018, and there was a recession. Big companies like Littlewoods and Woolworths, they were closing. The queues at the job centers were a mile long, and no one at that time was hiring. And there I was, unemployed for the first time in my life, and I had no job. I had a house, and consequently, the bills had to be paid. Have any financial situation to pay for those bills. And as you can imagine, it had a domino effect on other areas of my life. But I still had hope. I realized that, I was in a situation which needed to be changed. And I began to look for work. And I looked and I looked. And as I said, during those days, no one was hiring. So there I was, unemployed. And I went from job interview to job interview. I applied to several different companies. I applied to colleges, universities, schools, factories, you name it, I applied, and everything was a no. I tweaked my CV several times. I tweaked my job application, and it was just a constant no. Changed my CV so many times. I decided to help other people to find work. So a lady in the Wilson Green Library gave me some space, and I sat in the library and I began to write CVs for people and coach and mentor them how they can apply for work. And they got the jobs and I didn't. And consequently, as a result of that, I continued working. I continued working with and doing the presentations. But as it wasn't paying me, and sometimes I did it out of the free will of my heart, because I saw the passion in me, and I saw the results that people were coming and they were getting work. But obviously it wasn't paying sufficient. So I had to leave that and try to find work again. And it was a nightmare because I still couldn't find a job. And then one day I was in church and I sat down and I was mulling over things, and I really began to see life from a very different perspective. And life was very gloomy. It was dull. I had, the bailiffs knocking on my doors. I had the creditors, the bank threatened to repossess the house, and it was a nightmare. But as I was sitting in church, something came into my head, and something said to me, Audrey, you may have failed as a failure. And it was like a spark, a spark of lightning in my head. And I went home, and my perspective on life just changed there and then. And I went home and I got a blank sheet of paper, and I wrote the word failures down from one end, and you can see it there. I wrote the word failure down this end. This is exactly the same sheet that I had. And I wrote the word FAILUR, and F for faith, A for attitude, I for inspiration, etc., etc. And I use each letter to form a positive word or a phrase that can symbolize an action that I can take to help me to get out of this situation. But I did nothing with it. I pinned it on the wall and I left it there for about 10 years. And I never did anything with it because I didn't have the confidence to write it. My self-esteem was low, and I didn't feel that I had the confidence to write anything. And I remembered I spoke to someone and telling her about this book, and she just laughed at me. And she said, oh, well, nobody's going to want to read that. So, with that in my head and my thinking of myself, I decided, well, not really worth writing it. So kind of long story short, 10 years later, I was in church again, and the pastor was talking about this parable of the talents, the man of the talents, the 5 and the 2 and the 1 talent. And again, something just hit me like a ton of bricks, and something said to me, Audrey, you need to start writing that book. So I went home, and again, I took a blank sheet of paper and a pen, and I began to pray, and I asked God to inspire me with what I need to write. And I made such an action plan, and I began writing, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. And I completed this book this year in February 2023. And as a result of that, I began to think about what are my next steps. And my next step was to start a company, because I began to see my failures, not as failures, but as diamonds within the setback of failures and of challenges and of difficulties. And I saw them as valuable lessons that I can learn and that I can teach and help other women like myself to see themselves not as they are, bordering on the conditioned by their own mental thinking, but so they can reach their own the God-given potential. And I saw the glass as half full instead of half empty. And I formed a company. It's called Diamonds of Success. And here is where I teach and I mentor women. Well, my niche is women over 50, so that they can enter the job market and learn about the job process. Finding a job, looking for a job is a job by itself. And during COVID, many people lost their jobs. Many women were the breadwinners of their homes. And right now, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, he's encouraging people to get back into work because there was a loss of skills. So what I have done, I became an accredited coach and a mentor. And now I mentor women how to approach the job process, to approach the job market with confidence, knowing that they are of value. Their age should not be a liability, but also an asset, to see how they can, and show them how they can answer job interview questions so that they sound confident, they sound positive, they can captivate the interviewer and finally come away with that job. I also coach them how to write CVs so that it is planned, it is structured, it is well defined, so that the recruiter, when the recruiter sees that interview, they are the chosen candidate for that job. So that is what I do right now, and those are the steps that I've taken. My next step is to go out to schools and to colleges and to women's centres. I'm going to the Women's Centre in Watford sometime in November to speak to women, to show them their value, to inspire them and to empower them, that where they are, a lot of women suffer from low self-esteem, lack of confidence. So my role and my goal is to use the God-given talents God has given me so that I can be a blessing to other people, because we have to learn that it is not what happens to us, but also how we handle what has happened to us. I was very fortunate after all my setbacks to find a job at my local hospital here. And one of the things that motivated me to leave my job was every day I walk past a cemetery, as many people in Watford would know. There's a cemetery, on Vicarage Road, there's a cemetery to the right-hand side. And every day on my way to work, I would lift my eyes to the skies, to the heavens, and ask God to help me not to die with my dreams in my head. And that was a motivation for me to leave my job. I was made redundant, and it was a blessing in disguise, because I was praying to retire and to leave work. And that came at the right time for me to leave my job and to set up this business to help other women like me to achieve use their God-given gifts and talents. So yes, that's what I've been doing so far. And my role is to help other people so that they can achieve what God has blessed them with as well. So thank you very much. And that's Failure is the Diamonds of Success in a nutshell.
Excellent presentation, Audrey. I think your story would chime with quite a lot of experiences that we've had, particularly not just as women, but as Black people in the world of work and rejection and so on. But I think you kind of found a way around that, which certainly is very positive. I'm sure people want to hear more about that as we go through the evening. I mean, if you listen to you speak, and it reminds me of something that has often been said about women, and I don't know to what extent it impact affects Black women as opposed to women in general, which is that when it comes to a job, a man would be able to do 50% of a job, and that man would be an expert. Whereas a woman wanted to be able to do about 95% before they feel that they are competent. And I know a lot of organizations are doing work to try and change that narrative so that actually it's about your competence and not just about the way you present yourself. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
As I say, do put your questions in the chat, and when we get to the end, we'll no doubt be able to go through all of those. So I'm now going to ask Franca to take the floor and share your story, introduce yourself, and take us home.
Thank you, Clive, and it's nice to meet you. And thank you for the invitation to this event. I was told about this event by Councillor Favor after she came to my last book launch, because I launched a new book called Doing Business in the Black Community. I think that was first week of October. Yeah. So that's how I got to find out about this event. So my name is Franca Lawrence, and I'm a 6 times published author. I've written 6 books. I'm also a ghostwriter and a book writing coach and an independent publisher. So I started writing about 7 years ago. And it happened when I was on, I think I was on maternity leave. And I was really bored. So I started blogging. I started writing articles about all kinds of different topics. And I wrote about 40 of them. And I was posting them on Facebook. And the good thing about Facebook is that Facebook actually it has capacity for you to write a lot. You can actually write 5 pages and dump it on Facebook, and it will take it. So I wrote a lot of articles, and the feedback I was getting was amazing. And everybody was, oh, you have a flair for writing, you should be writing. See, the thing is, my first degree was English, BA English, and my father is a lecturer of English literature. So I grew up with books. I read a lot. And when I was in university, I had lecturers who would write plays, they write poetry, and would perform the plays. So I've always had that in my background. But writing a book wasn't really in my plans for a very long time until I came to the UK and started blogging on Facebook. So I think someone told me, Franca, these articles, you should publish them because they're really good. I wrote about different topics. I wrote about being a single mom. I wrote about divorce. I wrote about being unemployed, dealing with grief, bereavement. I wrote about fibroids. It was a really diverse topic. I wrote about relationships. And so I picked the best one out of them and decided to publish them. So that's my first book called Overcoming Life Challenges. And then after that, I wrote a second book called Enriching All Women. And that book came about because I organized a workshop for women with a friend of mine. And the reason why we did that was because I discovered that a lot of women take a career break, maybe to raise kids or to look after a sick relative, a mom, and then they struggle to come back into work. And sometimes when you watch X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, you find women who come onto the show and say, oh, they've got this beautiful talent, they can sing. But because they've taken time away to go raise their kids, they struggle, they lose confidence, they lose their self-esteem. So the idea was we had this workshop to talk about all these issues. And then I realized people. Why don't I make this into a book? So I wrote a book called Enriching Women, and the whole idea is because I think the statistics says about 70% of women, of what's poverty, or the poorest people in the world are actually women. And when you think about it, women, when a woman will spend her last dime to feed a child. So if a woman has money, if a woman has financial independence, then the kids will be fine. Then the community will be okay. So it's very important for women to have financial independence. Okay, so even if you're not employed, you have a skill or a talent or something you can do, you can turn that skill into a money-making income generation stream. So that's why this book is called Enriching Our Women, and the subtitle is Creating Multiple Streams of Income. And I'm an example of that because I have a day job. I work as a portfolio lead in a media company, and I write books. And my books became my side hustle and became a publishing company. So that's how I've grown from one stage to another. And then I also have books for children. I wrote a book called The Zen Gang Bully Busters. So that book was inspired because my daughter was bullied in school. When she would come home, she changed school when she was in year 3, and she would come home crying. And nobody would speak to me, mommy. They are mean to me. Because when a kid moves school, you find that your kids have already formed their friendships. So the person who's moved school, who's a new person to a school, usually finds it difficult to fit in. So, but there was a particular girl who was really mean, who was bullying my daughter. I went to the school, I spoke to the teacher, even met with the head teacher, but nothing happened. And then I said to go talk to the mother of the kid. And it turns out that she's also an African woman. So I spoke to her and I asked, I said, please, can you talk to your daughter? Because I don't like my daughter coming home crying every day. And the woman listened and she spoke to her daughter, and that stopped. And we became friends after that. So after that, I did a lot of research about bullying, school bullying, and everything, how it happens and how statistics, government, what regulations say about it. So I wrote a fiction story about 5 children and how they support each other in school and how they brought down the top bullies in their school. So this book, when I was writing that book, because you're writing for children are a tough audience. I wasn't really sure if I was even going to be able to get them to like the book. But I tried to make it funny. So there's now a Zen Gang 1 and a Zen Gang 2. And then I think my 5th book is called A Carriage Full of Laughs. So that's I blogged about my commute to work on London trains for about a year. And I was posting those blogs on Facebook, and everybody said it was hilarious. It was so funny. Anybody who takes the trains will know just how funny it is. The things that you see on the train. Some of them are weird, some are strange, some are, so that also became it because my writers group told me, Franca, this is really interesting. Why don't you publish this? This is really entertaining. And that book has become my bestseller because it cuts across, anybody can relate with A Carriage Full of Laughs. And if you want a light read, you want something that is really just for you to just, it's for escapism, something that you just read and to relax, entertain yourself and laugh a lot about what happens on our trains or on the buses in London. So that's what that book is about. And then my final book, the 6th one, Doing Business in the Black Community, is, so this one, I went out with my friends to an African restaurant and we had a really bad experience. And when we came back, one of my friends said, Franca, why don't you write a book about Black business? Because there's so many issues. We all know if you do business with a Black entrepreneur or with a Black business, some of them are really good, but a lot of them you get issues of unprofessionalism, poor customer service, or the focus is just on making money as quickly as possible, and not much attention is paid to making the customer, satisfying the customer and repeat business. So I said, okay, if I'm going to write this book, I need to talk to people. So I interviewed over 30 people. It took me a couple of years, and I'm so glad that I finally finished writing this book. And I'm already getting really good feedback from entrepreneurs telling me how this is helping them. But the book is not just about the problems with doing business in the Black community. It also offering solutions and tips on how you can do it better, because it's called Doing Business in the Black Community, and the subtitle is Getting It Right. So there are a lot of helpful tips in there. And the way I wrote the book, if part one is what the customers are saying, what are Black customers saying about doing business with Black? Because the Black business is offering us good service and good products. So part one is all about the customer's feedback. Then part two is about what are the businesses saying, because Black businesses also have their own pain points about doing business in our community. So it's a two-way conversation. So everybody gets heard, and that's what this book is. This book, Doing Business in the Black Community, is about. So that's my my journey so far with my writing. So now I went back to school 2 years ago in creative writing, because I realized writing books is my passion. I'll gladly do it for free, which will pay my bills. So I said to go back to school and learn more about it. And then I've set up a business because I've had so much demands for coaching, for ghostwriting, and also for publishing. So I'm now offering that as a service. My company is called Franca Publications, and it's a one-stop shop for everything book writing. If you want to write a book, you don't know how to do it, Franca Publications can coach you. If you don't want to write it yourself, and you want to go, we can't do that. Or if you've got a finished manuscript, you don't know how to go about doing the editing, the proofreading, the formatting, the book cover design, Franca Publications offers that service. So that is what my company does. And I would like to, is it okay for me to just share my screen briefly, Clive?
Yes, you can.
Okay. All right, so I just want to share the page of my website with all the books that, so got some of my books and some of my authors. So there they are. Using Gang, Enriching All Women, Courage Full of Laughs. And the final one, Doing Business in the Black Community. That's it. I'll stop sharing now, and I'll put the titles in the chat as Clive has access to do. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Franca.
Thank you.
So not just a writer, but a publisher, a coach, a mentor, a multi-talented contributor, as you all are. I think there's a whole lot of inspiring information that we've received from our three speakers, which suggests to me that actually we just need to, as I think Audrey said, kind of begin to think about where do you want to be and develop your plan, and it will be helpful. I'm going to open this up to questions, and I've got one or two that I might want to ask you all, but it's not just about me. Let's just have a look, see what we've got by way of questions. So the floor is now open. You can either put your hand up to raise your hand to, and there's a raise hand symbol, should be at the bottom of your screen. You could put something in the chat, which we'll have a look through. Either question or comment, and we will pick this all up. The first question that I can see was one from Marilyn after Elaine's presentation. And the question was this, Elaine, are your books guides, fictional stories, or a mixture?
No, they're all guidance. Guidance is for social workers and safeguarding partners. So a lot of them, for example, the one that I've written for parents, because often you go and you working with parents and they have no understanding whatsoever of what we class as domestic abuse. Unfortunately, and we're talking about men and women, though women predominantly, they believe that domestic abuse has to be physical. So if you don't have a black eye or a few missing teeth, you know, nothing much has happened. They don't recognize the controlling aspects of it, like the financial controlling, the gaslighting. They don't understand the psychological damage that they've been done to them until it's actually happened. But one of the main problem is nobody sees the harm it's doing to children. And we know, for example, that we make referrals in children's services, a huge amount of those to CAMS, Children and Adolescent Mental Health Service. Children self-harm when they're in a home that's affected by parental conflict and domestic abuse. And that includes also the verbal things. So we're talking about all forms of abuse, yeah? And the impact that has on children. So my focus is not just about domestic abuse and how it affects the adult, but how it affects the children and their mental health. If you have not seen it, I would recommend you watch that documentary with Ian Wright, where he's talking about domestic abuse in his life and how he, you know, the footballer Ian Wright.
Yes.
Yeah, and how he experienced that growing up, what his father used to do to his mom, and how he used to go to school and act out, and people used to think that he was, you know, misbehaving and so on and so forth. And he realized later on down the year, it's all the experiences he was having at home that was actually making him behave. So I would recommend you watch that and see the impact that had on him, even today, being classed as the angry black young man at school, until his coach discovered him at school and helped him to realize his talent. But that's a very insightful documentary. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of our children are actually suffering in their homes, and parents don't recognize it. And therefore, we're damaging our children. And as I've said before, and it's a passion of mine, in Peterborough, 96% of all cases safeguarding referral has domestic abuse. In Harrow, it's 87%. And in a lot of local authorities, which has minority ethnic communities, such as Luton, unfortunately, among the Pakistani community, it's rife. Bangladeshi community, it's rife. In Harrow, Sri Lankan communities, it's right across the board. And it affects our children tremendously. Their education achievement and their mental well-being is damaged before they even had a chance.
Elaine, thank you very much for that. I mean, some of you might know we used to operate a supplementary school, and looking at the experiences of some of the children there, you could see how domestic abuse has contributed. But Marilyn, I know, did ask the original question, and she's on the line, followed by Carol. So Marilyn, you want to come in?
There's another, and thank you all three of you. That was really fantastic. This is a question following on from what you've just saying, Elaine. And I don't know if this is included in any of your books or if it might be included in a future sort of guide or update. But one of the things that I've been aware of for the last 22 years, let's say, is working with women who were in domestic violence situations. One of the ways that they could move in the world and at least have some semblance of a life without being completely controlled was with the use of cash. So, for example, if they want to sneak and have a coffee with their girlfriends, for example, it didn't show up anywhere. It didn't leave an audit trail. If they wanted to travel somewhere, they weren't back in the day writing checks or having to put it on a credit card. But now I'm increasingly noticed that I can't even buy a banana in a hotel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Without it going, and within seconds. And there was one particular day I was at the station, so it said exactly which station I was at. On the train, wanted to buy a bottle of water. Oh no, have to be card. So it then says what train I'm on, and of course it tells you what time. And then I get to the thing at the other end. I want a sandwich from Itza, whatever it was. Oh no, we can't take cash. And I just thought, hold on a minute. If I was somebody who was trying to move quietly through the world, whoever then has access to the account, because we know how sneaky the partners can be, they'll go, this is where they are, this is what time, this is it. And I was just like, hold on a minute, what's the implication here? And I have seen no information about it. I did speak to one organization. Their response was, oh, they just need to get a burner phone. I was like, is this really the world we're living in? So from your perspective, with that sort of thing, is that an aspect you've looked at? Or has everybody really just got a burner phone and it's all a-okay to have a digital footprint following you around within seconds? I would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, the Reclaim Your Life one is about safety planning. I call it have your VEX money, right? So that you have control. So it's always, as you said, have a stash of cash. However, one of the things that we've actually looked at in children's services is the local authority can top up a cash point card for you. So Harrow do them as well. So if you want to be invisible, the local authority will just top up a card for you. So you just use it as you go along. It has no ID whatsoever. Yeah, it's just cash on it. And I think a lot of local authorities are realizing, well, I should say 3, Richmond, Kingston, and Harrow. That's the ones I know of. As part of the safety plan, they'll top up a card and give it to the female. Yeah. But in that instance, even if I had to convey someone to a refuge in Brent from Richmond, yeah, I was using my card all the way and then claim it back. So they would, and she was not allowed to use her card, her phone, nothing whatsoever that, as you said, that would track. Funny enough, Marilyn, I had a lady contacted me via Instagram, absolutely petrified. She said, you know what, I can't even buy your book to try and help myself because he would know automatically that I've bought that book. So I then said to her, okay, hold on. What I will do is try and email you, but are you sure he doesn't have access to your email? And I had to then put her in touch with an IDVA, Independent Domestic Abuse Advisor. I don't know this woman from Adam, so that she could do safety planning. But as you said, it is coming to light, as you've said, the lack of cashless society and how easy it is to follow people's footprint. And there is a horrendous story about the lady, she's literally campaigning for her daughter that happened. He tracked her from London to Northumberland, and that was the worst outcome ever. But he was able to catch her through that digital, that footprint. And absolutely, Marilyn, I think, thank you for that. But I will personally use that as part of the safety planning to raise that awareness. But I know it is possible for local authority. Again, the unfortunate thing is, it's only those women who get referred to us in children's services that will have that protection. If you don't have children and you're out there and you're having those crises, there's not much help.
Elaine, thank you very much for that. Thanks for that response. I mean, I almost said I'm not even sure how you could get to buy a burner phone without it being discovered in any of it. But
No, but the IDVA service, the refuge service, Independent Domestic Abuse, they have them. They will give it to you. You don't buy it. They will give it to you.
Okay, thanks very much. Carol, you've been waiting for a while, so Carol, come in. You're muted.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings. Ladies that have spoken so far, to Elaine, to Audrey and Franca, really enjoyed your journey so far. Very inspiring. And what I love about what each one of you touched on you know, your books are based on either your own lived experience or others' lived experiences. And that's so powerful because people can actually use those, you know, in their own journey. So well done. I really am inspired. And my question is to Franca. Can you put your contact details in the chat, please? Because I've been writing poetry for some time. I've always wanted to actually publish, but
Yeah.
it's something that I've put on the back burner. And I think tonight has inspired me to do something with them. So
Okay.
if I can have your contact details, please. Thank you so much again.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Carol. There's a lot of great messages here saying to you all, very inspiring, fantastic. Well done, Audrey. I agree, very inspiring sisters, quite appropriate for the occasion. A lot of those observations there, and so on. So a question.
Clive, there is one question from Viv Rose,
Yeah, I'll just
in
come
amongst
into
all the praise, because there's a lot of praise, and it says, to each author, did you feel nervous about writing a book? So I don't know who wants to take that first, perhaps Franca, and then Audrey, and then we'll move on. But yeah, did you feel nervous about writing a book?
Yes, I did, because I think when you write a book, it's like you're bearing your soul, thoughts with the whole world. And I think what I learned very, very early on, or what helped me, was the fact that I told myself, not everybody's going to like your book. Some people are going to like it, but be prepared for the criticisms and people not liking it. So I think that gave me, it kind of gave me the strength. So when I write a book, it's like I release it out there, and that's it. I don't worry about it anymore. I just make sure that I give it my best shot. I talk to, make sure it's properly edited, and that's it. Because you can't let that stop you. If you have something to say, you want to write it, just go ahead and do it. But make sure that you do it very well. And then it kind of takes, because some people, a lady approached me who told me she wrote a book, but because it wasn't properly edited, she just sitting there, and now she wants to do it all over again and get it edited properly. So I would say, if you're nervous about it, try and get everything right, and also know why you're writing the book. Know, because that's going to keep you going. Because some people write a book and they stop. There are a lot of unfinished books. I think there's a quote like that. There are many unfinished books in the attic, because some people don't get to finish what they're writing. So remember why you're writing that book, but that will keep you going. And then know your writer self, because people are motivated differently. There are some people, they write very well it's late at night. Like for me, for example, I write very well when I'm in motion. Most of my books were written while I was on the train commuting, and I write on my phone, on the notepad on my phone. So once you understand the best way you can write your writer self as a person, then it becomes easier. Yeah, but yeah, the nerves are going to be there, but there's a way to get around that.
Audrey.
I hope that was helpful.
Was I nervous? Oh, yeah, 100 million times. Yes, I was nervous. I always liked writing when I was a girl. I grew up in a home where my dad was a lawyer, so it was very scholastic. Short stories. And when I got older, and during my time of unemployment, and I realized that I had a talent for writing, I used to go to business organizations and write the minutes. We used to work as a minute taker at a fostering agency. So I liked writing, but when it came to writing about my failures, it was because failures is can be very stigmatized, a very stigmatic concept. And I didn't really feel confident writing about my failures. And, certain things happened. I may realize that, life is too short. No point, hiding behind something that can really help other people. And as I said, when I passed the cemetery every morning, that was a motivation for me to start writing, because I thought I don't want to die with what I have in me still, resounding in my head. And I decided to start writing. It was very nerve-wracking because I always wondered, what would people say about my failures? But after a while, I really wasn't concerned anymore. I felt relieved, realizing that failure is not final. Even though I had failed, I was not a failure, and it was not final. And there are many people who perhaps were hiding behind the cloak of everything was okay, but deep down there was failure in their life. So I thought by doing so, it would help many people to see themselves as, yes, there is life after failure. There's hope for me to get out from where I am and achieve what I can achieve. So after a few minutes, after a while, the failure, the nerves left, and I couldn't wait to. You do suffer from nerves, but I overcame them.
Okay, thanks, Audrey. Elaine?
I think because mine are more educational, and I've got a bit of a passion for what I'm doing. I was right. Okay, so my journey started when I was working for the London Borough of Hillingdon as service development manager. And they had such a crappy reputation for equality and diversity. And I learned at the feet of the master, who is Clive Saunders, when I worked in Southwark together. So I modeled I put my hand up in Hillingdon. And I said, yeah, I can do that. I can train the entire organization in diversity. And they turned around and they said to me, okay, can you create a program? So I created a diversity program to address the feedback about how people were being treated. And those used to be unaccompanied asylum-seeking children at the airport, and also different minority ethnic group. And I started, as part of my role, just training and creating all these training manuals. And then, people were commenting on the quality of them. And then the PCT asked me to create a training manual for them. And and people were saying to me, you could make money at that. And similarly to Audrey, I was standing there thinking, this is holding me back. I need to resign and move forward. Yeah. And I was earning good money, and I didn't even know where the net mortgage was coming from. But the minute I made that decision to resign and set my business up, it felt like a whole weight was off my shoulder. And I was going to give myself 2 weeks to write that resignation letter. But the minute I made that decision, I went in the Monday and I wrote the resignation letter, and I set up my business in 2008, Audrey. When things were really failing, but I had a lot of contracts by then, and I was developing a lot of training manuals. And so I got into this habit of writing, delivering the training, and I was giving away loads and loads of different things that I had written. But then I said to myself, I am going to be the expert on certain subjects, especially those that affect children. And I'm going to use my knowledge to develop some training material, and those then turn into books for people working in children's services. And then, alongside that, I did the degree in social work and went on the front line, even though I was getting old, because I wanted to see what people were doing on the front line that wasn't delivering the results. So I worked alongside social workers. I picked up on certain things, and I use all of that to turn it into good training material, and just continue to write all these books trying to educate people. One of the things that I noticed in Hertfordshire was that, if you are Black and from a Black and minority ethnic group, chances are your children will be put on a child protection plan, or you'll be in care proceedings before you could blink. And then I recognized that total bias, unconscious bias in Hertfordshire. And I hated that. So I started writing about that and delivering training. And I just I'm not nervous at all, because I'm just so passionate and I just want to get it right. But like what Franca is saying is, make sure you get a good editor, get it good proofread, because nothing is horrible than you've got it published and then you see an off instead of at or something in your book, you freak out for the rest of your life. But equally, as long as the message is getting across, the quality is there, and it helps people. That's all I want to do.
Thank you, Elaine. Just looking at what has been said, I see there was a question here about how do you enroll on your thing, Audrey, but I think you've answered that question. But would you like to say, so if somebody wanted to enroll on your recruitment program, I know you put something in the chat, but can you explain how that process works?
Just contact me, and then I do a 40-minute Zoom with them, just to find out where they are, what the pain is, how, the job situation, and then we just take it from there. I find out just a bit more about their life, and why they're looking for work and how come they're unemployed, just to find out their pain and how we can obviously move on from there. And then I would then start the situation of writing a CV for them. Well, I don't write the CV. We discuss the elements of the CV, what their achievements are, what they conquered in the previous roles or the current roles, and why they're looking for work and what particular job role they're looking for, because there's no point writing a CV for a job which has no bearings on what they want to do. So the CV and the job role has to be synergized together. So that's a part in which is very, very important. So before any CV writing is done, I need to know exactly what particular job they're going for. And then we can then talk about that and look at their achievements and just take it from there. In terms of recruitment as well, I tend to have a mock interview so that the person can go through the process of answering questions so that they become more confident. They'll be able to sound more professional, more positive when they actually get into the hot seat. Because a lot of people tend to see going for interviews as going to the firing squad. And I try to make out that it shouldn't be like that. It should be a conversation between yourself and the job interviewer. So I just try to allay their fears by holding their hands and just going through some mock interview questions with them so they actually understand the process. So when they actually sit in the hot seat, they're quite calm, quite relaxed, and then be able to captivate the interviewer and come away with a position they applied for.
Thank you very much, Audrey. And I see, Franca, you've put down the titles of your books, and the fact that there are, from each publications is where they are. For all of you, it might be helpful if you can actually not just put the title of the books in the chat, but also where you can actually acquire them from the publisher. So that would be helpful. So Franca, in your case, are these all available through your publishing company, or any of them available elsewhere?
Oh no, they're all on Amazon.
They're all on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are the main websites. They're also on Barnes and Noble. Yeah, they're all available to be. But I also make it possible for people to buy my books and those of my authors from my website.
Okay.
So when you click on it on my website, it takes you to Amazon or it takes you to Lulu. So the link is there. It just takes you to those websites.
Okay. Okay. This is a question for Audrey, but in fact, it might be a question for all of you in a case, which was what was most overwhelming in the journey of writing your book, and what was most interesting in that journey? So maybe start off with Audrey, since it was addressed to you, but I think in fact it's something that probably could be applied to all of you. Audrey?
I think what was most overwhelming was believing that I could write it, believing that I could actually complete it. It was a dream of mine for the past 10 years. And I still had that haunting voice in my head of someone who told me that it can't be done. And I had to fight those fears in order to get over that negative voice. It wasn't as overwhelming as anticipated. Well, once I started, I set an action plan, and I decided that every day I would do something on it. I would touch it every day, even if it's just a word. And many nights I came home late from church, and because I made that commitment to myself, I was, fire up the computer, and even if it was just to read a word or to pre-read something that I'd written before and correct it, and then to move on. That is how I actually overcame the overwhelm. I'd get up in the morning early before I went to work and timed myself, and I would just start writing for about an hour, finish at 7:30, and just make sure that was completed. So every day I made a decision to touch it every day to see it come to a completion.
Okay, Elaine and then Franca.
I think somebody mentioned, I think Franca, you mentioned having a time that you write. Right, so I have a group of friends. They'll be WhatsApping each other at 11 o'clock at night, and they go, don't expect to hear from Elaine till 6 in the morning. Because basically I'm a sort of person who will get up at 4, and between 4 and 9, I'm doing my best work. And obviously, you get tired halfway through the day, but that's when I find that I actually do. I can't write and I can't function very late in the afternoon or in the evening. So I'm usually very early in the morning, my head is just buzzing and I have to get things done. I'm fortunate in the sense that I type about 70 words a minute. So I can get my thoughts down really, really, really quickly. But yeah, I think that's it. The thing for me is finding when I function, when is my best point, and how to quickly get those ideas down on paper. If I keep putting things off and procrastinate, it will never happen. You got to be disciplined if you want to get it done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Franca, over to you.
Yeah, I think for me, the first thing I do is to create a framework for the book that I'm writing. So if I divide it into chapters, I know what chapter 1 is going to be about. So I've got this framework written down, and then it's now for me to flesh it out. So I discovered that when I write very well when I'm in motion. So commuting to work was fantastic for me because I wrote quite a lot of books there. So when the pandemic happened, I could not write anything.
Wow.
So I really struggled. So I decided one day to sit in my car outside my house. And I sat down in my car and started writing. And it was flowing. I could achieve flow. And I was like, oh, okay, I should be doing this. So the last book I wrote, I actually drive to a park in Radlett, not far from where I live. And I was sitting in my car for 3 hours writing. And that's how I got around that. So it's just understanding, knowing your writer self, the best time to write. And that's what helped me to get over that problem that I had. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. Another one for you, Audrey, and this is probably specific for you, which is, do you charge women to help to secure a job?
So could you repeat the question, Clive? Do
you charge women you help to secure a job?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay.
I never used to. But yes, I do now. I do charge because I'm running a business. Depending on the person's circumstances, I can be very flexible. But yes, I do charge.
Okay, thank you for that. Question for all of you. Do any of you suffer with any neurodiversity symptoms? And if yes, how did you overcome it? Any problems that have been helpful? Any programs that have been helpful with it? So the first part of the question is, do any of you recognize that you have any neurodiversity symptoms?
No, I don't.
I don't either, but I can certainly recommend, you say any programs that have been helpful with it. So I don't recognize I have any neurodiverse symptoms, but a very good program that I find when I'm on the way is Otter, which is an app. You can dictate into it, and it does from voice to text to message to text. So you're actually dictating and it's writing for you. And what I find is sometimes like I'm in a traffic jam, I have my phone, I use Otter and I do a lot of voice to dictation. So and then come home, download it, and the text is all there. So I'll be on the way somewhere and I'll have this great idea, and I can actually just chat to Otto and dictate a whole chapter. And when I get home, I might tidy it up, ready for editing. So I find that quite useful.
Okay. Franca, did you have a response to that?
No, I don't. I did not have any of the symptoms. No.
Okay. Janet, I know you asked the question. Did you have any observation about that matter yourself? I don't know if you want to. Janet, you asked that question. Okay. It's fine. If you don't have anything to say, that's fine. Okay. So Audrey, I think there's a question here. I think there's a lot of questions emanating from what you said there, Audrey, which is, so what is your success rate? How many applicants have you assisted to secure job roles?
I've assisted many. My success rate is high. I work for a platform called Bark, and I've had many great testimonies, very successful testimonies from people who I've worked with, and they have been successful in finding work.
Okay, thanks. Question here for you, Elaine. How do you spell that app that you mentioned?
It's OIITER, but it's like
do you want to put it in the chat? Do you want to put it in the chat so that someone can pick it up?
Yeah, I'll find it and put it in the chat.
Okay, so I'd say a few people would find a lot of interest. Okay, so we still. So I did have a question. My question to you all: has there been any particular individual or individuals who have motivated you in your journey and your writing journey? So I don't know who want to kick off first. Audrey, you're in the screen there.
Anybody who motivated me, not motivated me to write, but motivated in being disciplined. My dad was a disciplinarian, and he was very strict. He was a lawyer, a QC, and he was very strict in terms of things had to be done the right way, and it had to be done on time. He was a stickler for timing. And I think that helped me in my writing a lot, because I knew that if I slacked, my time scales would be missed. And as I said, I always had I set a deadline to which I wanted to finish. I slipped many times, but at the same time, I was always very consistent. And my dad was always he was very keen on consistency and persevering and not giving up. So in that respect, yes, I would say my dad influenced me in a lot of ways in terms of being methodical, persevering, and being patient with the process. Because obviously, we want things to happen straight away. You plant a seed today and expect it to, drink orange juice tomorrow. But one of the things I had to learn whilst writing is that patience and persevering. Big dreams take time, and you just can't decide you're going to start writing today and flourish tomorrow. So in that respect, yes, my dad was a great influence in my life.
Yeah, thank you for that. Franca?
I think for me to be reading the works of James Peterson, he's one of those writers that I think every book he's written is a page turner, because you pick up his book and you don't want to put it down. And I learned how to write a book that engages people. Because somebody said about my first book, say, Franca, you're writing about very serious topics, but you found a way to make it entertaining in your narratives. Because I put little anecdotes into my books. Because I'm writing about fibroids for women. I'm writing about dealing with bereavement. I'm writing about unemployment. But is how you make the book engaging. So it came from me reading Stephen King, James Peterson, trying to learn their craft. And also, when I was a teenager back in Nigeria, I read a lot of Pacesetters books, Pacesetters novels, Base and Bone. So I think I've been subconsciously, influenced by other writers all my life before I started writing. And then going back to school, going back to university to do a master's degree in creative writing, I had authors lecturers that really, really helped me. And that's why I was able to write a work of fiction, The Zen Gang. Because writing fiction is quite difficult. You are creating characters, you're telling a story, you're writing plots, scenes. So yeah, I've been lucky to have having quite a good to work with good people and read a lot of good books. I think that's what I would attribute my main influence to.
Okay, and I think final, Elaine, your response to that?
I think my great inspiration was my paternal grandmother. If Pearline is online, she knows a bit of my family history. My family came over in the 50s. We were born here, including myself. Times get hard, so like many children, you were sent off to the Caribbean to live with your grandparents. And I had the most fantastic grandmother ever alive. She was very well educated for a woman of her time. And I can't explain how much she did for me in terms of making sure I got the education, and how she admired me because she thought I was one of the most intelligent person she ever came across, God bless her. And I was always determined to tell her a story, because to me, she was the greatest woman ever born. And I still believe that today. And when I came back to this country in 1972, and living with my mom after my parents separated, living with a woman who I didn't know. And if I cry, you're going to forgive me, but leave my beloved grandmother Vera in the St. Elizabeth and having to come to England in this cold weather in September to start secondary school. And I just felt such a stranger. And I used to get cheap exercise book, and I used to sit down and write to my grandmother and tell her what England was like, how I hated it, and how I was going to come back home soon. And unfortunately, my mom and my grandparents didn't get on for obvious reason because of the separation. So I was writing all these love letters, these books to her, and they never got posted. And just as I was old enough to buy myself a ticket to return to Jamaica, she died. And I've continued to write about her non-stop. And I'm on a journey to finish that bio that I've started when I was 12 and a half years old. Yeah, and I've been doing a lot of research online. Then she's off to Cuba, then to Panama. So as an adult now, I'm going online on my heritage. I'm able to do a lot of research, and I'm going to complete that bio in her honor. And that's my last project.
Good.
Sorry, thank you very much, Elaine. I have to say, your paternal grandmother sounds a bit like my maternal grandmother. And that Jamaican experience. So thank you very much. I'm conscious that of time. However, is there anyone with a burning question? I think we've been through all of the questions that I can see. Marilyn, if she's there, might be able to help me if I've missed anything.
I'll have a quick look, but I don't think you have, but let me have a look.
Okay, but did anyone else want to ask a burning question? Or make a comment before we... So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our authors in reverse order to make a final observation, and this will be, and then I'll say one or two words after that. So since I think, Franca, you went last, so I think I'm going to ask you to share any final comments or observation that you want to share with colleagues, followed by Audrey, and then we end up with Elaine.
Okay, I think I would like to just give a little bit of recommendation. I don't want to use the word advice. If you want to write a book, don't. I know it sounds really daunting, the thought of sitting down and writing a book. But if it's a dream, it's something you always wanted to do, there's so much help out there to make it possible for you to do it. You could be coached to write it if you need guidance. If you want a ghostwriter to write it for you, you can do that as well. But it's something that you need to do. And there's no right time, there's no perfect time to do anything. So start from where you are and start writing what you want to do. And without content, there's no book. So you need to write and write as much as you can. So that would be my advice.
Thank you, Franca. Audrey, over to you.
I'd like to say that life is very short. Now, I delayed writing my book for 10 years because I didn't feel I was good enough to write it. And I want to say to everyone tonight that within each and every one of us, there's a seed of greatness. And sometimes we allow naysayers to quell and to dampen our beliefs by not taking, and we don't take action. And I would like, whatever you have to do, just do it. Just do it. As in the motto of Nike, just do it. Because if you don't do it, somebody else might come and do it, and you lose the opportunity. And sometimes in life, we never get a second chance to make our first impression, and we never get the same opportunity, or we might have to wait years before that opportunity comes again. So the right time to do anything is right now. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Audrey. Finally, Elaine.
So mine isn't necessarily about writing, but I have been trying to work with Daisy, and it's really, if there are any families in our community who found themselves up against Hertfordshire or any local authority in a child protection scenario or care proceedings where there's issues around not necessarily domestic abuse, but anything, you know, I can be your advocate, I can be your guide, I can be of help. So if you feel that you're in that situation and you need some help, do get in touch, and I'll be happy to support you any way I can.
Thank you, Elaine, for that offer, and thank you all three of you for creating an inspiring, just to repeat what most people have been saying this evening, which I think has provided us with an appropriate framework for concluding the month and saluting our sisters. And you are all a credit to that particular topic. You are sisters who have recognized the talents that you have, and you've gone out there and you're sharing that with us this evening. Please continue to do that. For those of you who have joined us, and I've seen at least one person has put in the chat that they're going to put pen to paper. I've been thinking about doing that more myself. So I think part of having these sessions is about actually us talking to each other, us inspiring each other. And I think that's happened this evening. Those of you, of course, have joined, have made it what it is, as much as our writers too, because actually you can't talk to yourself. You need to talk to others. Those of you who have actually contributed in some ways to the evening, thank you very much indeed. This particular session will be available on YouTube, so you can share it with other colleagues and be inspired. My final word would be to say a couple of things. One, if you live in the Watford Three Rivers and really Hertfordshire here, this is your organization. Please join. If you look at on our website, which is www.waka.org.uk, you'll find out about our organization. Membership form is there. We have a WhatsApp group too that you can also join. So please make the organization your own. And if you join, you will see a number of other things that we're doing, because Black History doesn't just occur in October. It happens right across the year. And there's some old friends I can see on here that we haven't seen for a little while, like Caroline, for example. Great to see you joining us this evening. But finally, thank all of you as audience. Thank Franca, Audrey, and Elaine for inspiring us this evening. And I'm going to, and you can see in the chat all of the different positive comments that people have been making. So thank you also. Oh, final thank you to, we have a Black History Planning Group, which has put this event together. Marilyn was here tonight, some other colleagues, I believe, too. So I want to thank them for their work putting together this month. If any of you would like to be part of that, we operate throughout the year, then please get in touch, put something in the chat, and we'll keep in touch with what's happening. So thank you all once again. I'm going to stop the recording because I think we've got to that point.